5 things we learned from the Premier League this weekend. We have to talk about Liverpool. It's a procession now for when they win their second Premier League title. Now you start looking at when will Liverpool win the title, not if. They could win it against Chelsea, which would be a massive, massive moment for them, because you never want to be the side that gives a rival the Premier League title. But if Liverpool beat Chelsea early May, they will be two-time Premier League champions, and that'll be massive for Liverpool and Liverpool fans for obvious reasons. Big rivalry between Liverpool and Chelsea. They weren't great against Southampton. They still managed 17 shots and absolutely dominated the game. But Salah looked a little bit, I don't want to say fatigued or tired, because obviously he's supremely fit, but a little bit leggy at points. Some heavy touches, a couple of heavy touches in midfield as well. There wasn't much rotation for Liverpool, and that is very, very interesting. Arne Slot is leaning into momentum, into rhythm. I think he's learned from other managers that if you make too many rotations, if you're too smart with it, you can actually derail a season a lot easier than if you just play Salah, play Van Dijk. When you play Southampton at home, these guys are so bad. They look like League One opposition, not even Championship opposition, the way they capitulated in the final 30-odd minutes of the game. They just surrendered the ball. They were absolutely shocking Southampton after they scored. Let's be completely real. There is an argument you don't play Salah, you don't start Van Dijk, you don't start even Alisson. Seriously, bring in Kelleher, rest these guys for a massive Champions League game, massive League Cup final against Newcastle United. I think Arne Slot is a very, very pragmatic man. I think he's realised that whatever happens in the Champions League, whatever happens in the League Cup, it's so important for Liverpool to stretch the lead, to put massive pressure on Arsenal on the Sunday when they played Manchester United, and try and win the Premier League as early as possible. He's got a free hit this season. Everything he does is a bonus. No one was expecting him to win the Premier League in the way that he has, as early as he has. I think he's leaning into that, playing the best players every single game until something happens, and then he'll adjust. There is an argument you could have rotated a little bit more. It doesn't matter. It's against Southampton. But ultimately, Liverpool look absolutely fantastic. 32 goals so far this season, 20 assists for Mohamed Salah. These guys are very, very special. There will be harder games in Southampton to come for Liverpool. And the fact that Arne Slot isn't rotating against Southampton, it says a lot about the hunger, the desire from these players who are in their 30s that probably struggle to play twice every 7 days. And I think they believe they can win some form of a treble. You know, obviously a League Cup, Champions League, and a Premier League. I think Liverpool believe strongly they can win 3 this season, and that's why they're going heavy in every single game. The second thing we learned from the Premier League this weekend is that the 3 promoted sides, Ipswich, Leicester City, and Southampton, are the worst sides in the history of the Premier League. Now, you can say that about last season because Sheffield United, Luton Town, and Burnley obviously got relegated after getting promoted from the previous season. But Luton Town, first time in the Premier League. Burnley, not much money. Sheffield United, not much money. It was relatively new. That had never happened in 25 years of Premier League football. That was since Barnsley, Bolton and Crystal Palace got relegated in 98 after being the newly promoted side. So it was kind of a first. We thought maybe it's an anomaly, the first time in 25 years. These sides, Leicester City, former Premier League winners, FA Cup winners recently 4 years ago. Southampton, I'll give them a little bit of credit. They came up very, very early. They've got a very young squad and maybe not necessarily the investment to stay in the Premier League. But Ipswich spent over £100 million and got promoted from League One the following season as well. So you have to say these 3 are the worst sides in the history of the Premier League. Southampton got bullied by Liverpool. There was something really sad about the Ipswich one because Ipswich created a lot of chances. They have all season against Crystal Palace. I think it was about 17 shots against Crystal Palace. Didn't score. Wasteful in front of goal. But we have to talk about Leicester City, who lost to Chelsea. Their defensive line is so shambolic at points. And I didn't think Chelsea were that good. But Leicester City, they've lost 10 in a row. I think it's more than 10 in a row. It's close to being in the last 20, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 16 losses. 16 losses. I think the sacking of Steve Cooper is a marginal decision. I think you could argue they'd be in a similar position now. I think they'd have at least 5 or 6 or 7 more points than they currently have now, and that would have been absolute gold dust to Leicester City. So I think sacking Steve Cooper, despite how maybe pragmatic he is, a little bit boring, a little bit non-dynamic, I get that. But you had to just keep him there. Ruud van Nistelrooy is a complete experiment, and it will go down as one of the worst sackings, I think, in the Premier League in the last 25 years. To just sack Steve Cooper, who's kept Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. He knows the squad, had the pre-season with them. To bring in Rude just because he's a big name and he had a couple of good games against Leicester City for Man United as interim. It's a shocking decision and a lack of loyalty. I think it's really, really poor. These three are the worst sides ever. And the issue is it could be 3 seasons in a row. I look at Leeds United, I look at Burnley, I look at Sheffield United, I look at Coventry City, who are absolutely fantastic under Frank Lampard. They'd all get relegated, lads. They'd all get relegated next season, let's be honest. Unless it's a miracle from Coventry City with the Frank Lampard effect, I highly doubt it. Maybe Leeds United with the money they've got with the ownership, and obviously Ellen Road. But I said that about Ipswich. I thought Ipswich was a fortress. I thought the KP Stadium was a bit of a fortress, with Jamie Vardy running in behind. But it's proven me wrong. I can't believe back-to-back seasons, these 3 sides are getting relegated. It's an absolute shambles. Have to talk about Mikel Arteta, his 200th game as Arsenal manager. I think we learned that he's under massive, massive pressure. The way he stormed off from that interview, it's his own Kevin Keegan moment, Rafa Benitez moment. It's a very interesting period for Mikel Arteta. There's no question he has laid an unbelievable foundation for Arsenal in the next 5 years. He absolutely has. Saliba's currently at the club, doing very, very well, fantastic. They've got a brilliant keeper, the best they've probably had since Jens Lehmann in David Raya, pulled off some great saves against Manchester United. Obviously, Bukayo Saka, Odegaard. There's a Timber. I look at Timber as fantastic. Gabriel as well. Declan Rice. He's created a nucleus of at least 7 or 8 players that are absolutely fantastic in European level to go on and win trophies. The issue is, this Arsenal side look a little bit reactive, a little bit emotional, and a little bit like a side struggling under big, big pressure. And I think Liverpool put a tiny bit of pressure there. I think Liverpool were there for the taking at points in the last couple of weeks to make up ground on Liverpool. I think Arsenal could have done it if they were switched on, if they were a little bit more ambitious in the transfer market. The way they've fallen away in the last 3 games is embarrassing for a big club, in my honest opinion. That being said, at 200 Premier League games, he's won 118 out of 200. That is only a few behind Jurgen Klopp, Alex Ferguson. Guardiola is about 30 ahead of him as well. So it's a very, very strong record for Mikel Arteta. I would be concerned about the way he walked off in the interview. A little bit rude, a little bit concerning, a little bit emotional. But I think he's appalled that Arsenal haven't been able to make up ground on Liverpool and win the Premier League title when Man City fell away. So the third thing we learned is that Mikel Arteta, under massive pressure, they have to make sure they come fourth because they can't keep losing and drawing games. They haven't won in many weeks now in the Premier League. Have to wrap up with Chelsea. I think they're in a strong position to be the Champions League team, either 4th or 5th behind Man City. In and around Man City and Nottingham Forest, in my opinion. It was a big win. I think they got a very, very difficult run. But if they get through the next 4 or 5 games, let's say they win 3 out of the 5, I think they're going to get into the Champions League. I think Newcastle have got concerns. I think Bournemouth and Brighton, these sides on the precipice, they almost keep taking points off each other and focusing on different things. And Bournemouth are falling away now. They're lingering towards mid-table. Brighton have been in fantastic form. But Chelsea look like the side, particularly with their Conference League position where they can just rotate so many players. Cole Palmer looks a little bit off. There's no question about it. And they did look a little bit shaky at points against Leicester City. Some weird defending going on. They got Arsenal, Spurs, Brentford, Ipswich and Fulham. By that Ipswich game, if they win, let's say they beat Brentford and Spurs, beat Ipswich, I think that'll be easy for them, and Fulham. That's 4 out of 5, and maybe they can draw to Arsenal. Maybe they beat Arsenal. Then I think they're in a very, very strong position to be in the Champions League. And we have to wrap up with Brighton. They're far into the FA Cup yet again, like they were a couple of seasons ago under De Zerbi. Big win against Fulham last minute. João Pedro, they've won 6 in a row. Their form since losing, getting banged by Nottingham Forest, has been absolutely incredible. You can see the change that Hertz has brought in an extra midfielder. Obviously, Belaib has come back from injury. I think all Brighton need to do is just have that extra man in midfield. They're always going to control elements of a game. They're so confident against even Man City on the ball. They're absolutely fantastic. So against Fulham, getting on the ball, dominating possession and doing very, very well. And Hertzler, I think, has shown a lot of maturity as a young manager. They were in a really weird little spell. They could have really gone down the table. They could have got launched out of the FA Cup. But big wins against Newcastle, big wins against Chelsea. The Fulham result, Fulham have been absolutely fantastic in the last few games as well. To beat them 2-1, big for them. They are now the side pushing for the Champions League spots. Last week it was Bournemouth. The week before that it could have been Newcastle themselves. So it's changing every single week. But Brighton, absolutely fantastic, and they've got a big chance to get into the Champions League. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you made it this far. Make sure you give the video a like. I'll see you very, very soon.